You know, from ancient myths to modern day icons, we humans have always looked up to heroes. It feels like such a personal choice, right? But it's also one of the most universal things we do. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that impulse. We're diving deep into the psychology of why we need heroes and what our choices say about who we are. So let me just ask you straight up, who is your hero? Go on, think about it for a second. Is it an athlete, a scientist, maybe someone in your own family? Got someone? Okay, that person you just pictured, they're more than just an idol. They're a key. Because here's the whole point, really. Our heroes are a window, a direct look into our own deepest aspirations. The people we admire aren't just out there on a pedestal. They're like a map of our own potential, reflecting the very qualities we hope to find in ourselves. Now, this need for heroes isn't some new age fad or a modern cultural thing. Not at all. It's actually wired deep into our psychology, with roots that stretch way back to the dawn of our species and into our own childhoods. I mean, if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes perfect sense. Think about early humans, the ones who could spot and copy the most successful people in their tribe. You know, the best hunter, the wisest leader. They just had a way better shot at surviving. Hero worship, in a sense, started out as a very smart survival guide. Okay, so let's fast forward from our species' history to our own. As we're growing up, especially as kids and teenagers, we're all wrestling with that huge question, who am I? Well, it turns out heroes often provide the very first rough draft of an answer. Psychologists have a term for this. It's called our self-concept. It's basically the internal story we tell ourselves about who we are. And heroes, they're like the superstars in that story, giving us these solid, real-world examples of courage or brilliance or kindness that we can try to build into our own identity. And as we get older, it's totally natural to start looking for guidance beyond our parents. Heroes step into that role through something called secondary attachment. They become these figures we can look to for a sense of direction and stability while we're trying to figure out our place in the big, wide world. So, we've got a handle on why we need heroes. But what's actually going on in our brains when we admire someone? It's not magic. It's a really fascinating psychological process. That feeling of awe, it's not just one thing. It's actually a three-step dance that happens in our minds. First, our brains spot something truly exceptional in a person. Then we give them the credit. We decide that greatness comes from deep inside them. And finally, that chain reaction leads to inspiration, that feeling that makes us want to be better. And that second step is where it gets really juicy. There's this idea in psychology called attribution theory. It basically means we're hardwired to see our hero's success as a result of who they are, their talent, their character, their grit. We tend to downplay stuff like luck or circumstance, and that's what makes their story so powerful. And what about that first step, recognizing excellence? Well, that's driven by something called schema activation. Sounds complex, but it's simple. We all walk around with these mental blueprints, or schemas, of what a hero should be. When we meet someone who fits that pattern, boom, our brain lights up and the whole admiration process kicks off.
This brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. See, we don't just admire our heroes from afar. We connect with them. We identify with them. We use their stories to make sense of our own.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? A hero's life story is a mirror. When we look at them, what we're really seeing is a reflection of our own ideal self, the person we're trying so hard to become. So how does this mirror actually work? Well, a big part of it is that we learn just by watching their journey. When they succeed, it actually boosts our own belief that we can succeed too. We don't just copy their actions. We start to internalize their values, their way of thinking, and even their resilience when things get tough. And this directly pumps up something called self-efficacy. It's a fancy term, but all it means is your belief in your own ability to get things done. Seeing your hero overcome some insane obstacle sends a powerful message to your brain, hey, if they can do that, maybe I can get through my own stuff too. It's the practical magic of having a hero. Okay, but this whole hero thing isn't just a private one-on-one experience. It plays a massive role for society as a whole. It's part of the cultural glue that holds us all together. I mean, think about it. Heroes are the anchors of who we are as a culture. They represent a nation's highest ideals, they're how we pass down our morals to our kids, and boy, do they give us hope when times are tough.
The shared love for one person can literally unite millions and spark massive collective action.
But, and this is a really, really big but, there is a dark side. The same powerful psychological forces that make heroes so inspiring, well, they can also become a dangerous trap if we're not paying attention. This usually starts with something called heroification. It's basically the process of airbrushing a hero's life story. We sand down their rough edges, edit out their mistakes, and present this polished, perfect version. The problem? That perfect image is totally unrealistic and, frankly, not even real. And when that process goes way too far, it becomes deification. That's when we start treating a flawed human being like an infallible god. And this is where it gets truly dangerous. It shuts down our critical thinking and can lead to blind obedience, where we just stop asking questions and start following, no matter what. So where's the line between healthy admiration and this unhealthy, uncritical adoration? Well, healthy admiration focuses on specific qualities you want to build in yourself. It accepts that your hero is human, flaws and all, and that inspires you to grow. But uncritical adoration, it puts the entire person on a pedestal, ignores their imperfections, and ends up stifling your own ability to think for yourself. Look, the key takeaway here is not to become a cynic and throw the whole idea of heroes out the window. Not at all. The goal is to admire them with your eyes wide open, to take inspiration from their incredible strengths while also understanding, and maybe even learning from, their very human flaws. And that brings us full circle right back to you. If your hero really is a mirror reflecting your own highest aspirations, I want you to take another look. What parts of you are really being reflected back? And what parts of their story are you choosing to see?